Okay, we rock and rolling now. So, what's up, Nikki? The Everyday Life of OCD Chick, Shay. Uh, let's see, Mike's Chaotic Gardening. We see you in there. Got G Mama Grows, um, Passionate Intrigue, Tia Drummond, Tia Drumgold. Um, don't Hurt the Harvest. What's up? Got 10 in here. What's up? She's speaking. Got Miss Shirley OG. What's up, Miss Shirley? I'm finally doing the live thing. What I want to talk tonight about, just I think everybody was asking me about doing that composting thing. So, what's up, neighbor? What's up? That's what I'm talking about. So you see IG Mama on that, Tam?
Yes.
She hit him with the neighbors right off the rip.
Yes.
But I tell you what we wanted to do before we even get started tonight for our moderators. And Mike, we got to figure out something for you because it looks like all of our moderators are females except for you. But what we want to do is do like a little gift pack. Tam, you want to kind of take over that because that's the little thing that she has going on. And we were saying that you guys have been so generous with your time and helping me get up to speed. We wanted to do something for our moderators just straight off the top before we even get to anything that we're doing today. So, Tam, you want to throw that at them and let them see what they want to do with that?
Yes. So Keith and I were talking today, and I just appreciate you guys just being so attentive and just there to help him, And so I thought about the idea. I have an online store and I sell fashion jewelry and I make clothes. But anyway, so if any of you moderators, just to show appreciation, would love to go to my online store and pick out anything you want, you are welcome to it. And we have a coupon code that you can use at checkout, and you get everything absolutely free and free shipping. So if you just go to tammysherrill.com, and I'll put
it
in the chat. Yeah. And you could just pick out anything you want, like a few items, and you get everything absolutely free. And you just use the coupon code. I'll put it in the chat, and it comes to me, so I see the orders and I fulfill them myself. See, the coupon code is Love My Mods,
and that's Love My Mods. And then we have another one that we're going to be doing a little later, where we're going to be talking about loving our neighbors, and that's what we're going to be calling our chat, our subscribers, our followers, or whatever it is, because I get so many people that say they wish they were my neighbor. So we're going to make that possible right here in the live. So we're going to be calling everybody labor. I see Broke Farm up in here. So that's my internet cousin right there. So we got cousins in here. We got neighbors. I don't know if Miss Linda's up in here, but if Miss Linda was here, then you got family. And all of that makes one big neighborhood. You know what I mean? One big community. So I just really appreciate everybody taking the time out to really let me get my sea legs up under me. And tonight we just wanted to kind of chop it up a little bit about composting. Like I said, I'm still getting used to sitting up here in front of the screen and talking without having someone to kind of talk off me. So I got Tam over here to throw some stuff back on. But the composting thing that we were talking about doing last year was the 18-day composting method, which is a Berkeley composting thing. And I got so many people saying that they wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to do it like a challenge. So what we got to come up with now, if we're going to do a challenge, is what would be the prize and how would we even go about doing the whole thing. But for the most part, I want to get you guys up to speed for those. Hey, what's up, Cash Flow? I see Cash Flow just came in the room. Sharon Brown, Veggie Farming. But again, so many people are spending so much money on these bag composts at the big box store. What I wanted to do was kind of show you how I cut the cost with all of my raised beds, because I think my first year that I was gardening, I did what many of you are doing, and that's run up to the big box store. You know, Black Cow was my thing. I was buying bags and bags of it, so I know how expensive that can get. So what I think would be good for us to do as a community is kind of learn how to compost together, and we can do from our lives some updates. Basically, if you're having any issues getting your pile to heat up, that's something that we could talk about here to kind of walk you through the things that you might be doing and may not be doing. And we're going to make this as simple as possible, because I've watched so many videos over the past few years of people talking about composting, but then they give you all of these equations, 30 to 1, and most people don't understand that language. And if you do, we're going to make it even simpler. We're going to say 1 part to 1 part, and that is your greens and your browns. Over on IG, I had somebody pose a question to me, and it was a really good question and something that I had not addressed, and that was the use of cardboard. And I see so many people throwing cardboard in their cold composting pile, and that's one of the reasons why I don't cold compost. And I'm not one to tell anybody how to do their thing or why they should do it or why why should they not do it. But what I will say is there's some things that you want to think about when you're using cardboard in your compost pile. If you're not hot composting, which is what I do and what I would like to show you guys and get you up to speed with hot composting. It's real simple. The main elements you're going to need, the main things you're going to need are going to be grass clippings and leaves. I mean, it really is that simple. Grass clippings and leaves. You can do up to 50-50 for each one. So if you got a 5-gallon bucket here, put 5-gallon bucket of leaves, another one 5-gallon bucket of your grass. Mix that together, put it together, and it's going to heat up. You need that pile, though, to be at least 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide. That's really the only requirement that you're going to need. You can do up to 50% of each one, the grass clippings or the leaves. Now with the cardboard, something that I do use, and I got a little box right here, and you can see this is where I shred a lot of my cardboard, and it comes from a paper shredder that I have, and I have a 13-page paper shredder, which is generally good enough to compost any of the cardboard that you have. Now you might be asking, well, if you're saying that there's an issue with the cardboard, then why am I using it? Cardboard, for those who are not familiar with, if it's recycled, is even more, because it was kind of confusing to me in the beginning when I first started learning about it, because I was like, well, if they're saying it's recycled, then that has to be a good thing. But come to find out, the recycled cardboard is one of the things that you really don't want to put in your compost pile. And why is that? Because your recycled compost contains formaldehyde. And for those who don't know what formaldehyde is, plain and simple, it's a carcinogenic. So, and like I said, I see a lot of people doing it. It's not my business to tell you what to and what not to do. I'm just telling you how I do it and the things that I do to get around some of those things like that, like hot composting. And when I say hot composting, I'm talking about thermophilic. When you putting your greens and your browns together and it reaches a temperature between 140 and 160. And there are 4 phases of that composting, and that 4 phases is going to be your now I'm getting the brain fart. Whatever the first one is, which I can't recall right now, and it's crazy because I should have wrote that down to make sure I remember. But then you go through a thermophilic process, and the thermophilic process is where your bacteria, your weed seeds, your pathogens, and all of that things are cleaned up in what they call a hygienization phase. And it's exactly what that word says. When you reach that temperature that gets up into that 130 to 160 mark, and that's where you want to kind of cap it off at. it goes through a hygienization phase. And that hygienization phase is exactly what it says it is. It's where the compost becomes clean at. That's where if you have cow manures in it that can contain salmonella, that can contain E. coli, during the thermophilic phase of composting, where that pile gets up into that 130 to 160, that's where it cleans that pile up. And once again, that's one of the reasons why I don't cold compost. When you're cold composting, it's pretty much you're throwing everything out there and you're letting it go through the natural process of decaying. And sometimes it can take a year, year and a half for that compost pile to break down. But when you're thermal composting, you can literally have ready to use compost within 18 days. And that's the Berkeley 18-day composting method. And that's generally what I use. Again, I use cardboard, but because it goes through that thermophilic phase, it hygienizes the cardboard. So it takes it, not cleans it directly, not cleans it 100%, but it takes it down to at least a 10% chance of that the stuff being in your compost. So that's one of the things that you guys want to keep in mind whenever you're doing composting and you're using cardboard. Even when we're putting that cardboard on the bottom of our raised beds and we're using it as for weed suppression and things of that nature, you must be, just know that, that's formaldehyde used in that cardboard. Some people ask me about the glue that's in there. The glue is pretty much like eco-friendly these days. You got most companies now are a little more thoughtful about the glues that they're putting into their cardboards. What I found is the cardboard is mainly tapioca. If anybody knows, like tapioca pudding, which comes from the cassava root. So a lot of the glues that you have in the cardboards, they're pretty good. So you don't have to really worry about the glues, but it is a fact that the cardboard has formaldehyde in it. And that's more so in the recycled cardboard than anything. There's virgin pulp cardboard that you can find. That is actually friendly, that's safe to use. But for the most part, that's the only thing that I see right now off the rip that's starting off on this composting thing that really is going to make a difference in getting you up to speed with the hot composting. Again, grass clippings and leaves. If you want to keep it as simple as possible, that's how simple it is. 50% grass clippings, 50% leaves. Anybody want to ask any questions? We could ask some questions. Tam, you still there with me?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So like I said, anybody want to ask any questions, on getting into the composting? We're more than welcome to, answer any questions. But I just wanted to, like I say, get everybody up to speed on what we'll be doing going into the springtime, because of course the grass isn't growing right now. So what you want to be doing now is collecting your leaves for those like myself who hadn't really cleaned up the yard altogether, because a lot of our bumblebees and our insects, they overwinter in our leaves. So I have a tendency of leaving a lot of my leaves out throughout the winter. So the bumblebees will be the first things to start to come out of hibernation, and they'll be a part of the whole spring burst of the flowers and all. But if you're like myself and you still have your leaves out, that's one of the main things that you want to be collecting for our spring composting on the 18-day composting.
Keith, I did see a question about, I was trying to find it about alpha pellets.
Oh, the alfalfa pellets, yeah.
Yes.
Alfalfa pellets, again, we're talking about the grass and the leaves. That's going to be your main components to your compost pile. You can't go wrong with grass clippings and leaves. Those are two things. And if you have a lawn that you're spraying herbicides on, you don't want to use that. Back in my garden area, that's where I do a manual mow of everything that I do. So I know that all of my grass clippings are good. Neighbors, you might want to be a little funny about who you get your grass clippings from, who you get your leaves from, because depending on what they're spraying on their trees, what they're spraying on their lawn, that can make a difference in what transpires and transfers over into your garden. So that's something that you definitely want to be aware of. But I go back to that formaldehyde again. And it took someone over on IG to ask me that question, and I was like, wow, I didn't even think to bring that to everyone's attention, because I have been one of the ones telling everybody to collect cardboard in order to get into the composting thing. But what I did not tell you is that I hot compost, and that's the reason why I'm able to do that. And I still can't remember that first word. Let me pull my notes up here. Compost. And I got a cheat sheet over here for anybody that don't know. Everything that I'm doing here is like for whatever videos I've made, I kind of take notes on them, and then I'll save them over into my notes. So anytime I need to pull something up, I just go over into my notes and pull that up. And again, it's composting to me is really fascinating. I mean, it's no matter how many times that I've done it, it's like doing it the first time every time, because to put those materials together and watch it go through that first phase to where you'll start to feel it a little warm that first day, and within 24 hours you can go back out there and that pile has gone up to 120, 130 degrees, and then by that third or fourth day you've gotten into that 140, 160 degree mark. That to me is fascinating. And what's so fascinating about it is it's like a big party going on in your pile. And that big party is essentially the microbes pretty much doing everything that you could think of. They're eating, they're drinking, they're multiplying. You know, everything is happening, and that's what's creating that friction in there. So it's not when you say a hot compost that it matters that the sun is out, because that's not where the heat comes from in the compost pile. The compost pile actually comes from living microorganisms that are in the pile, multiplying and breaking down those organic materials. But it's to me is an amazing process. And one of the main ways that you can save in doing with this organic gardening that we call it, you know, however close you want to say you are to organic gardening, but it'll save you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year by learning this simple process. And I mean, it is so simple. You probably would be amazed at how simple it is, just mixing those two great ingredients, grass clippings and leaves. And what I like to do is, like I said, even with these the shredded cardboard that I have here, it's I have this thing to where anything that does, I think it's 12 pages of papers, you should be able to just put cardboard in it and it'll shred that cardboard up. The smaller the particle size, the faster the microbes can break that down. The faster the microbes can break that down, the faster you can have compost. And like I said, I don't do wood chips because wood chips takes longer to break down. The cardboard and the leaves pretty much covers your carbon. The grass clipping covers your nitrogen. But as Tam was bringing to my attention, I also like to use the alfalfa pellets. Now, your compost pile is going to be somewhat acidic, and the alfalfa pellets are actually alkaline, or more closer to a neutral, like a 7.0 on the pH scale. And as I'm now getting into kind of explaining a lot of the things that I'm doing, because people will see me put alfalfa pellets in my garden beds, and they really don't understand the whole gist of why I'm doing it. Because if I have a low pH in my garden bed, I can add the alfalfa pellets. But if I have a pH somewhere around 6.7, 6.8, I won't put alfalfa pellets in that bed, because then you're going to be pushing yourself over to an alkaline state, which most of our plants that we're doing in our garden are going to be somewhere between a 6.2 and a 6.7. And the more that you want to get into, and this is just something that I do, I like to know exactly where I'm at in terms of my pH in the soil, because I like to tune in my peppers for a certain pH. They say between a 6 and a 7, but my pH for my peppers are generally around a 6.2. I try not to go over a 6.5 with the peppers. My ginger, I keep my ginger somewhere around between a 5.5 and a 6.2. And what this does is when that pH is tuned in, it gives your plants the maximum ability to uptake nutrients from the soil. So you're going to be using less water. You're going to be using less fertilizers. And it's going to make your plants healthier because they're able to fight off infections, viruses, funguses, things like powdery mildew, all of those things. And if you've watched my garden over the past year, last year, I had 0 powdery mildew. That's on squash, my green peas. Of course, I spray them with whey, and some of you probably already know what the whey is that I use, but a lot of that has to do with the fact that my pH is tuned in. And if you go over to growingoutthebox.com, I have a very inexpensive pH meter on there. And what I'm going to be doing as the season comes in, I'm going to bring out my Blue Lab pH meter, which is a $200 meter. And then I'm going to bring out the less expensive pH meter. And I'm going to show you guys just how close they are. They pretty much match up 1-in-1. I had the less expensive meter for probably the latter part of last year. So I'm still trying to match it up to the Blue Lab, but the Blue Lab is what would be considered industry standard, very accurate. So I matched those two together, but the price on that is very reasonable. And if you're trying to really get into organic gardening, this is one of the tools that you absolutely need, at least in my opinion, to make sure that you are getting the most out of your fertilizers, because the fertilizers are only good as what your soil is. If you don't have that life in your soil, putting organic fertilizers on your product, your garden bed is not going to do very much for you. If you've been using synthetic fertilizers, organic fertilizers is not going to work well for you, because 9 times out of 10, you've depleted the nutrients in your soil, as well as the fungi, as well as the microbes. And those are the things that are needed to break down the organic matter that you're putting in your gardens. And keeping that pH within the correct range allows those plants and the microbes to work together. They form that, as you hear all the time, that symbiotic relationship. And that's one exchanging sugars and carbohydrates for the microbes and the fungi, exchanging the nutrients that the plants need. And again, I just find it, just fascinating how all of this stuff works together. And last year, I cut down fertilizing expenses. I cut down the amount of watering that it took, and I had some of the healthiest plants that I have ever had. And I'm not saying that this is something that you're going to be able to get overnight, because it's an ongoing process. But once you start doing this on a regular basis, continuously adding this compost that we're talking about making and adding that into your garden bed, it's going to make your garden life so much simpler. You can sit back and let the garden take care of itself. And that's pretty much it. Look at Miss Linda. What's up? There you go.
I was waiting for you to
What's up, Miss Linda, the New Orleans gardener? For those who don't know, and most of y'all in here already on Miss Linda's live, but this is where I hang out on Tuesdays and Sundays. I'm sorry, 7 Central, 8 Eastern time. This is Miss Linda, the New Orleans gardener. You can get a wealth of information by sitting in her lives. This is where I got my start at, and I'm forever grateful to this lady right here. So, to you. All right. So, like I say, anybody want to ask some questions? We're open for questions here. There's
some questions out there, Keith. I was waiting for you to kind of pause a minute, but Dave Busby, he was saying you're taking him back to science. It's like you're taking him back to science class. So I wanted to acknowledge that comment.
And it really is. It really is science, because the soil is science. You know, as we often say, you know, and I'm going to say aspiring organic gardener, because you know, it's all a learning process, and in the pursuit of trying to be organic, you're going to grow better fruit. You're going to grow healthier fruit, more nutrient dense. And those are the things that we want to have to feed our bodies, to feed our families, so that we can ourselves, the same way that our plants do, fight off infections, fight off viruses. If you have healthy plants and you're eating healthy food from your garden, it's going to make you healthier. And that's essentially what brought me to the gardening community, 2020, you know. And if you follow Miss Linda, you've probably heard me mention it on her channel a couple of times, but 2020 is what brought me to the garden. And because I got sick in 2020, first time I ever got sick in my life. And I'm generally a good eater, a healthy eater, but going to the garden is what got me back in motion. And I said to myself, I made a promise to myself that I would not go back to the way it was. So a lot of things I stopped doing. You know, I used to do car shows every weekend. I haven't been to a car show since 2019 when we put up the cars. And of course, 2020 happened. And I've been focused on this garden thing since 2021 is really when I decided to really go in it and really learn as much as I can, really apply myself. And this is all the result of 3 years. And also, before I go back to the chat, I want to thank you guys for showing up and showing out on growingoutthebox.com. What was the numbers, Tammy, last count we had for the February?
I think it was like, was it 30 something thousand? I want to say
34,000.
Yes, it blew me away.
34,000 visits. 34,000 visits. I'm gonna say this again. 34,000 visits in the month of February. When I mentioned growingoutthebox.com on this live, what was it, a week ago, 2 weeks ago? We've had 34,000 visits, and y'all showing up. I mean, you're not just coming over there to look around, y'all spending your money. And I appreciate that. And that's kind of what we were doing with the mods in the beginning, and being able to share this back to the community. And what I would like to do, and this is something that I'm straying off from the composting thing, because I can't help but to want to put back in where I feel like I'm taking out. And, you know, like on the top of our chats, when we come in, there's a goals on the top of the chat. And I would like to know who would be willing to put into that pot when we start talking about goals. And at the end of the chat, we spin a wheel and the winner be able to take 50% of that pot. Now, how does that sound to everybody? I'd like to know what that sounds like. 50% of the pot. So if we do goals in the chat, and let's say, for example, however much you guys put into it, we split that chat with one person every live that we do. That's something that I want to do, because of course, part of that money goes to YouTube. And then we also have to keep the upkeep of what we're doing with the channel. But I want that to be something that if you guys put in the pot, somebody's going to walk away with that. So I really like to get your input on that. Okay, sifting some soil. What's up, Mona?
Okay, we have a passionately intrigued Arts and More. She's asking, how can you tell, going back to the cardboard, if it's recycled or not?
Okay, let me see if I can find that.
Okay. And if anyone had a question, can you kind of repost it, because these comments go kind of fast, and I'll try to capture your question.
We're 146 on YouTube, and I'm trying to see. I can't even see how many is on Facebook or IG. So Facebook and IG is live also. But we're 149 right now on YouTube.
Yes.
So,
Make
but
sure y'all hit that like button. That helps the
yes, please hit that like button. Yes, the like button. But back to your question, passionately intrigued. Um, Generally, you're going to see on your packages, and again, myself included, I thought when you saw recycled on the boxes that was a good thing. You would think that because they're recycling, you would think because they're recycling, that would be a positive going back into the community because they talk so much about composting and recycling. But the recycled cardboard, a lot of times you'll see the recycle emblem on it. That's that's where the formaldehyde is. They use the formaldehyde to reattach and to keep the cardboard from absorbing moisture and to hold it together. And again, cold composting, if you're just ripping it up, throwing it in your compost pile that's in the back of your yard, I would not suggest that personally. But again, it's your garden. You can do it how you want to do it. That's why you guys have never seen me doing any cold composting. And so many of you was asking, like, how do I do the hot composting? The reason, again, that I do the hot composting is because it goes through a hygienization phase. That hygienization phase, that is exactly what it sounds like. When it reaches those temperatures between 130 and 160, that kills weed seeds. It kills bad bacteria, not the good bacteria. It kills bad bacteria, bad fungi, and it also takes care of any pathogens. That would be E. coli, any type of pathogens. And that formaldehyde, that fits right into the category of where that hygienization kicks in. Now, all, things aside, you're not going to get 100% of it out. But that's true even with the weed seeds. That's true with the E. coli. There's a chance when you're composting, you're actually creating life. That's what that compost is. It's a bag of life. When you're putting that into your soil, it's everything that's living in there, because that's what's being used to break down that fertilizer that you're putting in. If you're putting in a blood meal, if you're putting in a bone meal, if you're putting in like a myriad of potash, it's the bacteria that's in your soil that breaks that stuff down. And again, it forms a symbiotic relationship with your plants. That means your plant releases exudates into the soil. Those exudates come in the form of carbohydrates and sugars. Those sugars attract your microorganisms and they exchange. It's like I said, it's like a perfect marriage, because the carbohydrates from the plant, the sugars from the plant is released into the soil. And I don't know, I guess one of the best ways to explain it, most of the time when you pull your roots up and you see how the soil sticks to the roots, that's not like from moisture as in your water. That is actually the exudates from the plant and the microorganisms that are sticking to your roots of the plants. That's what makes the healthy zone, that rhizosphere right there around your plants. That's what the plant holds on to. And that's why you want to keep everything around your plants moist. That's why you want that life in there, because your microorganisms are aquatic. They like water. And when you let your soil dry out, you don't necessarily kill them, but they go dormant. And as you water back in, they come back to life and they start back interacting. So as it's cool outside right now, it's not going to be a whole lot of life. I'm not going to say they go dormant, but they're not as active when it's not warm outside. But when you start getting into the 65 and 70 degrees, that's when the microorganisms, the earthworms, and all of those arthropods, they start to become more active. And it is the poop that you are looking for. That's exactly what it is. It's the poop from the earthworms, which are your worm castings, and it's the poop from your nematodes. And a lot of people hear the word nematodes and it automatically scares them, but you got good nematodes and you got bad nematodes. You have your root knot nematodes, which are your bad ones, but you also have your nematode feeders, which are nematodes that feed on the bad nematodes. And when they poop, that's the same thing as your worm castings. That's what your plants feed off of. All right. Thank you, Joy's Garden Hub. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Keith, and so
Hey,
stop.
Garden Hub. I'm sorry. I had to blow that up.
Let's see. So, how do you hot compost? That's what Jay's Garden Hub is asking.
Well, hot composting, again, it's just your greens and your browns being mixed together, and it's the microorganisms within that creates the heat. You're not adding anything. You're going to have stuff like I said, I add in alfalfa pellets. Alfalfa pellets, that's a nitrogen. Let's see some other things that we could add. You could add your food scraps. And I only add to my pile once. I don't keep adding to it. Whenever you add to your pile, you continuously add to it. You're literally starting the composting process all over again. So you're not going to be thoroughly composting. It's not going to go through the process. It's not going to go through the phases that it has to go through in order to be safe. Because again, you're putting items out there that has to go through a decaying process. And it's the life in the soil, the life in the compost pile that actually creates your compost. So it's living organisms. And the compost, again, that's what feeds your plants. You're going to use less water. You're going to have healthier plants. You're going to have less fertilizer needs, because everything you need is in the soil. And going back to the pH of your soil, finding out where the plants are that you are actually growing and the pH range that they should be in, that's going to help your plants out, because the plants that are in their pH range, they're going to be able to extract those nutrients from the soil. Let's say, for example, ginger. Most of us are growing ginger, but most of us are putting ginger in our soil with everything else. So if your compost or your garden soil is a 6.7 to a 7, which is neutral, then your ginger, it's going to grow. It's going to survive there, but it's not going to take up the maximum amount of nutrients, because ginger likes a little more acidic. Actually, ginger can go from a 5.5 to a 6.5 and grow really good. I had my garden bed last year where I grew my ginger at, and just to see how I can tune it in, I think it was like at a 5.8 to a 6. And the ginger had some of the best ginger that I've ever grown. So these are things that you want to just get into as you start growing, and again, aspiring. Because I know Miss Linda had Broken Calvin on the channel the other night, and they were talking about no such thing as organic gardening. And to a certain extent, yes, but at the same time, there's always what I like to say is aspiring organic gardeners. In other words, just go through the process, do it the best way that you can, and that's going to give you the best results that you possibly can in feeding your plants and getting the most nutrient dense vegetables out of your garden that you possibly can. I'm going to go back to the chat, Tam.
Yeah, so Keith, did you already mention, let's see, South Florida Sunshine, our moderator, she's asking, can you give some examples of hot composting versus cold composting?
Cold composting is just what it sounds like. It's basically you taking your scraps out of the garden at the end of the day and you're just throwing them on a pile. That's just as simple as it is. And that's why I said I didn't want to overcomplicate this thing, but the thing about the formaldehyde was something that someone else brought to my attention. And I was like, you're absolutely correct. So that's why I brought the formaldehyde in. But cold composting is exactly what it is. It's basically you just throwing your scraps, whatever it is on the ground. There's no real formula to it, and you're allowing it to decay over time. You can put branches, leaves, your mulch in, just anything goes. You just throw it in there and you leave it and it decays over time. That's going to take longer because you don't have the correct ratios. So you're talking about cold composting could take up to a year or 2 years to break down. Some people think because you see it and you can go over there and grab it and sift through it, but that's still not finished compost. Even hot compost can take over a year. And that's with the thermophilic phase of composting. So composting it's a simple process to do, but it literally is a science. It really is a science. And when you compare the cold composting to a hot composting, there's a formula that has to be put together. And then I'm gonna say keeping it simple as possible, because you'll hear a lot of people say 30-to-1 ratio. And then they'll start telling you wood, like sawdust, is 500-to-1 ratio, and then telling you how to break that down. That's too complicated. Nobody in the average person in the garden community, that's going to go right over their head. So we're going to keep it 100% simple, 50% compost, 50% 50% your greens, 50% of your browns. That's anything that's dead and anything that's alive. Your grass clippings, fresh grass clippings. And quiet as kept, you can use just grass clipping. I have done it. You can use just grass clipping. Sit grass clippings to the side, collect them, let them dry out, let them get old, and then take some fresh grass clippings and mix them together. They will heat up. And it's that 50-50 ratio that you're using between your greens and your browns. Again, I use the cardboard, but the recycled is the thing that I kind of stay away from. I'm not even sure if the Amazon boxes, I need to go back and look at the Amazon boxes and see if the Amazon boxes have that recycle logo on it, because most of the cardboard that you're going to see, you'll see that. And I was thinking too for a long time until I got into composting that, wow, recycling, that means a good thing. No, recycling in cardboard, it does not, because that's where they add the formaldehyde. And for me, that don't make sense to me. You're trying to recycle things, but you're putting carcinogenics in it in order to bring it back to where we, as backyard gardeners, so many of us are using this stuff in our gardens, using it as mulch, using it to suppress weeds, but it's something that they don't tell us. You know what I mean? So you want to go back to the chat, Tam, see what else?
Yeah. So South Florida Sunshine, she's asking this question. Well, actually, she said, I thought alfalfa was just natural slow release nitrogen.
No, alfalfa is actually a grass. And I'm taking it a step further. You already know when I get into my little mode, I go extra with it. So I am actually growing alfalfa.
You grow extra?
Yeah, you know I'm going to always do a little extra. It ain't going to be no, because once I started buying the alfalfa and I realized alfalfa has a compound in it called tricontinol. Tricontinol is it's a hormone, but it's a root stimulant for seedlings. You're talking about you put this stuff in your seedling mix. Oh my goodness. Y'all wonder how I was having those cups out there and those plants in those cups almost 12 inches tall, looking about as healthy as ever, because I'm mixing the alfalfa in with my potty mix. The alfalfa, again, has a compound in it. It's called tricontinol. Tricontinol. Look that up, because it's a hormone that's in the alfalfa, and it's used to stimulate the roots, and it makes things grow. I seen Broke using it over there. I see David Core with the crops using it. But in doing my homework on the alfalfa pellets, the only negative to the alfalfa pellets, like I said, it is alkaline. It's closer to a 7 pH. So if your soil is a 6.7 or better, you probably don't want to use the alfalfa pellets, because that's going to take your plants up into an alkaline range. And most of the stuff that we're growing, besides stuff like asparagus, I think it's a little more on the alkaline side. It can go neutral to alkaline. Let's see some other things. Not much is going to be alkaline that's in the garden. So you have to be careful when using the alfalfa pellets. But in terms of nitrogen, it is a nitrogen source. It is a nitrogen source. And even the alfalfa is a legume. So the bacteria that I use, you see me using my leguminosarum bacteria to form the nodules on the roots. Alfalfa is a legume, but it uses a different bacteria. and that bacteria is called a melilide. And I have that bacteria as well. But again, I'm growing alfalfa, so I'm really excited about the new season coming up. And I got a whole plot. It's a 24 feet long by 12 feet wide plot that's just alfalfa. The stinging nettles I'm going to be growing this year. And all of these things are great composters. They're compost accelerators. That's really what the alfalfa can be used for. It's a compost accelerator. If you're using yarrow is a compost accelerator. Let's see some other things.
So Keith, how do you know, OCD's Chick wants to know, how do you know the pH of your soil?
You have to check it. You have to check your soil, and with a pH meter. Now, chances are, like a lot of us have water filters on our refrigerators. Like on my refrigerator, I actually have a pH meter on my refrigerator, and it tells me what the water is coming out of my faucet. Miss Linda, I got to thank for this, and Miss Linda already know what I'm about to say about the butterfly pea. The butterfly PT flower can actually test the pH of your water. Your water is going to dictate the pH of your soil, because if you're watering from your water hose, that's going to keep your soil closer to whatever the pH is of the water that's coming from your hose, which is the water that comes from your house. So if you can test the pH of your water that you're watering your soil with, that's generally going to be right around the space of where your pH of your soil is.
So you have a video out there, Keith? I'm sorry, Dave Busby said he just watched your pH video last week. So you have a pH video out there?
Yes, it's basically showing you how to use the pH meter. And
okay.
I'm going to do some stuff this year where, like I said, I'm going to use my Blue Lab pH meter. And the Blue Lab is expensive, so I'm not expecting everybody to run out and get a Blue Lab. And I'm not promoting Blue Lab. I'm just saying industry standard for what I've seen. Some of the probably the more scientific gardeners out here that's doing the organic gardening, they use the Blue Lab more than anything. But what I have done is I've ordered a couple of little miscellaneous, inexpensive pH meters, and I'm testing them against the Blue Lab. And that's what I want to bring to you guys into the next season. And that is a less expensive version of the Blue Lab that can also do the same job. And I got one up in my store. You guys might want to go over there and check it out. I'm still looking for something that's a little less expensive than that. But when you start talking about $200 for a Blue Lab compared to a $50 meter that pretty much is comparable. And I've compared it through the course of last season when I bought this less expensive one, and it's pretty jam up to the Blue Lab. So I'm feeling pretty good about offering it for sale. So any other questions over there?
Well, Beatrix, let's see, she asks, how do you test the soil? I think you kind of went over that, but she also asks, do they make the test kits?
I don't know that you can get a test kit from one of the big box stores that is accurate, because I've tried them. And for me, it's like by having the Blue Lab soil meter, that kind of gives me advantage over being able to compare the two. And now that I have multiple resources that I can check from, it really gives me a good indicator of which one is more accurate. So if my Blue Lab is saying the pH is a 6.7, and my least expensive one, and I'm gonna keep saying the least expensive one because I'm really not endorsing it thus far, but the least expensive one is telling me it's a 6.7, and then this little powdery mix that they're selling you in the stores and the little meters that they have, because I had one of those little probes that you stick down in the soil. It just never was coming close to what the Blue Lab and this other meter was doing. So I don't know that I can recommend it. I mean, it'll be a good experiment to just go in and try to see if it works. But for me personally, I haven't been able to get it to register in the same range, whereas I've been able to do that Blue Lab and that least expensive one that I'm going to be testing out throughout next year. Any other questions in there?
Yeah, people are, let's see, they were talking, engaging with one another. Let's see. Please, okay, QUE 535 say, hey, please let folks know that they can contact their county extension office for soil testing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now that's depending on where you're at. You want to do your soil testing in the fall because, of course, when you start talking about getting up into the spring and then the winter, spring and then summer, then a lot of the larger farms and stuff like that are doing their soil samples. So you kind of get pushed back. So you want to start doing your soil test if you're going to be sending it to your local extension. And you can call, like I said, your county extensions because one of the places where I get a lot of my information from is from our university extension. So that's a reliable source that you can always go to, and you can find answers to pretty much anything that you're looking for on your local extension. Whatever city you're at, whatever state you're at, the universities almost always have a university extension that you can get the information from. I've heard Broke talking about it. I've heard Miss Linda talking about it. And it's a reliable source where you can actually go in and read the articles where they've actually done the experiments. And this is one of the things when we were talking about the powdered eggshells. That was one of the ways that I learned that powdered eggshells, you can really eliminate Lyme out of your garden by using the powdered eggshells, because the powdered eggshells actually are more effective than using Lyme in your garden. So here you have a natural resource that you probably been throwing in the trash or throwing out thinking that you're getting calcium in your garden, where it can be a lot more effective if you powder it and sprinkle it in your garden. Once again, eggshells are alkaline as well, so you have to be careful when you're adding the eggshells, the powdered eggshells. If you're just doing the crushed eggshells, it's a little different because it's going to take a while for the calcium to leach out of it. And for me personally, I just don't think there's a net benefit to throwing powdered eggshells out into your garden, because there are so many factors that have to go into that calcium leaching into your soil. How acidic is the rain? How acidic is your soil? Because the eggshells are not going to release that calcium if there's no acidity in your soil. Some areas that don't get rain, you throwing eggshells out in your garden, eggshells are going to do absolutely nothing for your garden. You can do the vinegar extract that I've used before, which makes a calcium acetate. But the calcium acetate goes straight to the plant. And I can't really say that I'm a fan of that. I've done it. I've used it. And if you're having like something like a blossoming rot and you want to use the calcium acetate to facilitate maybe trying to figure out what's going on with why you're not able to access the calcium in your soil, because it's very rare that you have a calcium deficiency. Most of the time it's going to be your watering or overwatering or underwatering, which is going to cause your blossoming rot. The eggshells, the powder version that I use, it is very alkaline. Very alkaline. So you have to be careful on how much you use. Most of the time in a 4x8 raised bed that most of us use in our backyard gardens, I would say no more than a quarter cup. No more than a quarter cup, because you're looking at I think per acre, it's 2 pounds per acre. And if you divide that down, you're going to come up with maybe a quarter cup that can go into a 4x8 raised bed. And you only want to do this once a year. You only want to do this once a year. So let's see if we can go back.
All right, P. Johnny Johnson sent you a super chat, and she had a question, but she sent you something. $2. It said, and she also asked, when checking soil, are you only checking the pH? Thank you, Johnny. You see that comment?
Yeah, I don't see the comment on there.
Oh.
But I start with the pH. For me, everything is my whole garden is built based upon the pH. This is how I create the foundation for each one of my raised beds. Each one of my raised beds. Okay, gotcha. Thank you, Johnny. That checking your soil is the only way. Well, pH is like, that's the foundation, because again, if your pH is off, your plants are not, if you're organic, if you're, I'm gonna say it again, aspiring to be an organic gardener, if your plants are not able to access the nutrients that are in the soil, then no matter how much fertilizer you put in it, it's just not going to do any good. So knowing what your pH is, for me personally, has been the advantage that I've had in learning how to grow different plants. And just doing you could do a simple Google search and it'll tell you which particular vegetables and which pH they're comfortable at. There's a reason for that, people. It's not just there just to have something to show. It's there so you can maximize all the potential of your plant. It's going to make your job so much easier. A lot of people were asking me, like, what was I doing to my peppers last year in order to get that color, that anthocyanin that you're talking about? That is from having the pH tuned in. Some of that stuff I barely fertilized last year. I did it on planting, maybe a little fish fertilizer here and there, but for the most part, the garden is on autopilot. And that's because I focus on the soil. The soil, if you are, again, an aspiring organic gardener, the soil is the most important tool that you have, because without healthy soil, you don't have healthy plants. So I hope that answered your question. The pH is the start, and that is the finish. I test probably every other week, just a part of a checkup. And I mean, okay, let me put it this way. You think about the pH of your body. If the pH of your body is off, think about the infections that set in. That's the same thing with the soil. Your body, the plants that you're eating, have the same type of metabolisms and the structure that you need in order to function. If you have a pH off balance in your body, infections are going to set in. It's just viruses, all type of things happen. Your body is not able to take up nutrients. It's the same thing with your plants. We are one and the same. So your plants you feed the soil feeds your plants feed you. You are what you eat.
You are what you eat. Yeah, Charm just looks like Charm just entered the room. He said, what's up, growing out the box?
What's up, Charm? Gina. Thank you, Gina, for giving me a little space today. Gina was doing her live today, and I politely chimed in on Gina and asked her would I be stepping on her toes if I were to come in at 8 o'clock. And she politely said, you know what? I'm going to do better than that. I'm going to end my live at 8 o'clock and I'm going to send my people over to your live. So I appreciate you, Gina. Thank you. Thank you,
Dave. Awesome.
Yeah.
We still got 134 in the chat. So that's awesome. Make sure y'all hit that like button.
Hit that like button. So we're not going to keep you guys for too long. We've been here for an entire hour. Any questions about the composting?
Yeah, there are a couple questions that came in. So Ann's backyard garden, she's asking, can I start my pile with all those leaves and then AGH grass? I'm not sure what that AGH is.
Yes, you can. What I suggest to everyone, and this is what I wanted to do in taking us, hey, Sweets of Heaven. I didn't see you come in. That's Rakita. Let me see if I can find you in there. She's speaking to Gina. What I would say is collect your leaves, because again, you got a lot of insects, arthropods that like to overwinter in your leaves. So for me, I'm a little conscious about just taking all the leaves up. You want to leave some out because, again, a lot of your bumblebees, if you didn't know, your bumblebees overwinter in your leaves. And if you have stuff like I do, like my blueberries, which require early pollination. So when you have those bees waking up first part of spring and those blueberry bushes are blossoming over there, there's the magic right there. Your blueberry bushes, for those who don't know, and I'm always going to push back to my blueberry bushes. Those blueberry bushes are going to be one of your first, they're going to bring those pollinators in. So that's another reason why you might want to add blueberries into the equation of your garden, because that's a big part of going in from that spring, going into the summer, and having a natural resource of pollinators that are coming in, the flowers. Another one that comes in early is the yarrow. And I know Nikki, the OCDist chick, she was saying that she's growing yarrow this year. A yarrow is a beast. I love it. And it also is a compost accelerator. So that's a good nitrogen source that you can have. Another nitrogen source would be the Mexican sunflower. I'm growing that this year. The stinging nettle, I'm growing that this year. The amaranth. Amaranth is another one. And for those who don't know, amaranth also can fix nitrogen. So that same bacteria, the leguminosum bacteria that I use on my legumes, the amaranth, they'll also attach to the amaranth now. And that amaranth can be used also in your composting, as well as for flowers and things of that nature. So there's a lot of uses for that. I'm growing that as well this year. The Love Lies amaranth, that's what you want. Beautiful plant. And the leaves are great compost accelerators. So yeah, collect those leaves. And again, the cardboard, I don't want you guys to shy away from the cardboard, but I just wanted to make you aware that when you see recycled cardboard, and don't take my word for it, look it up for yourself, and you'll see that it has formaldehyde in that. And that's one of the main things. And the only thing that you're going to be able to get that down, cold composting won't do it. So if you're using cardboard in your gardens and you're just laying it out, there's formaldehyde in that cardboard. Hot composting is the best thing that you want to do to be able to remove that, because it takes it through that hygienization phase. Let's go to another question, Tam.
Thanks for that, Keith. You have a first-time live joiner, a neighbor. It's Panda Jr. First time joining your live. So welcome.
Little
ITZ, yeah, ITZ Panda Jr.
Because I'm behind in the chat too. ITZ Panda Jr.
Okay, so B Smiles 84 is saying, in one of your videos you had pine cone chips for mulch to protect the soil from the heat. Where can I purchase that type of mulch?
I am working on a vendor right now. We're actually negotiating right now with a vendor, and there are many pine bark nuggets. That's what it is. You want the pine bark nuggets, because the pine bark nuggets don't rob the nitrogen from your soil as you would think wood chips would do. So I see a lot of people use wood chips as their mulch, but the pine bark nuggets are acidic. You can mix them into your soil with your blueberries, and that's got to be what you're talking about, because I use the mini pine bark nuggets. I mix it into my mulch and into my growing medium for my blueberry bushes. And one of the reasons why I do that, because of the mini pine bark nuggets are acidic, and they're very acidic, somewhere down to maybe a 4.5, 3 to a 4.5. So they are very acidic. And here's something that I want to say to you guys, and I know somebody in there gonna be like, he don't know what he's talking about. Your pine straw, pine straw, mixing that in with your blueberry bushes does absolutely nothing. Pine straw is acidic until it turns brown. When you get the green out of it, it's no longer acidic. So it doesn't do the same thing as the pine bark mini nuggets. I've heard some people swear by they use pine straw to make their garden more acidic. I'm afraid to tell you that that's not true. Once that green, you see the pine needles up on the bush, the tree. Once that green leaves the pine needles, so does the acidity. Good for mulch, but it's not going to do what you need it to do in terms of maintaining. I'm not going to say lowering the pH of your blueberry beds, but maintaining the pH. The mini pine bark nuggets does that. So Lowe's and Home Depot actually has mini pine bark nuggets. You can buy the regular pine bark nuggets. They need to be aged, and most of the stuff that you have at the big box store are aged. And you can simply just throw it on the ground and run a lawnmower on it. You want those chips to be as small as possible. And what that does is, because the particle sizes are so small, and because it does not take up the nitrogen like most other organic items that you would throw into the world, like a carbon source would, that's one of the reasons why I use the mini pine bark nuggets. I even use mini pine bark nuggets in a growing mix. Now, the reason why I can do that is because I add alfalfa. That offsets it. So while the mini pine bark nuggets drops that pH, the alfalfa brings it back up. Some people will say add some dolomite lime, but the alfalfa would do just as well. Plus, you have a fertilizer that's the alfalfa brings it up. And then if you want to use a fertilizer to bring your pH down, you can use a sulfur, but also you can use something like a cottonseed meal. A cottonseed meal will bring your pH down or maintain a lower pH. So you can use fertilizers to take your pH up or down. Again, alfalfa will take it up. A cottonseed meal would take it down. And these are things that I have put into practice, not something that I heard somebody say. I've put these things into practice, and I can go back and test the soil after using these items and see the difference of what they do. And they are effective. Let's go to the next question.
Okay, well, first let's acknowledge My Little Corner of Heaven sent your super chat. Thank you.
Appreciate that.
And let's see, how do we adjust the pH if need be? That was that question for.
Okay. So the pH again, you can use sulfur to bring it down. These are things that you can buy just offhand. Sulfur is going to bring it down. You could use a dolomite lime to take it back up. But once again, you can use fertilizers, things like cottonseed meal, which will help bring that pH down, or you can use the organic. Let me make sure that I put emphasis on that. Organic alfalfa pellets. Organic alfalfa pellets, because regular alfalfa pellets, some of that stuff has like vitamins in it or steroids in it. It could have different type of stuff in it that you don't want to put in your garden. So only use the organic alfalfa pellets. Again, the lime, dolomite lime, takes your pH up. Sulfur brings it down. You can use stuff, like I said, pine bark nuggets. Pine bark nuggets will bring it down. It's so many different things that we can use that a lot of us don't talk about, but those are the things that I want to explore and share with you guys, so you can save a little money. Some of the stuff we already have around our gardens that can really assist us in doing pretty much everything that we want to do without having to run to the big box store every time. We're going to be doing some our fish fertilizer also this year. There's a local seafood spot that I've been getting some raw fish guts and things of that nature from. And yeah, I got my own little fish fertilizer that we're making. And a lot of that is from that lactobacillus bacteria that I use and spraying with the waste. So it's a real simple formula that you can use where you can literally make your own fish fertilizer. It's so much we can do on our own that costs a fraction of the dollar, because as the big box stores are feeling the crunch of the price hikes, they're passing that on to us. So these are some of the things that we can do to offset our own expenses. And that goes all the way back to the compost that I'm talking about. Some people I've heard saying black cow in certain places, which is what I was using before I started making my own compost. But the black cow in some places $8-9 a bag. You can make your own compost. It really is that simple. Let's go on to the next question, and then we're going to get up out of here. We're going to give a shout out to our moderators also. OCD is Chick.
Yes, they do such a great job.
Yes.
Angela Calloway, she just bought a blueberry shirt, so we can't wait to see her in that. Make sure you post it to the community, Angela, when you wear it.
And I'm rocking my growing out the box here anyway. So, I'm always be old school with it. Y'all already know it's got to match. And then if I would have popped my feet up here, I got the shoes to match too. So
No, you don't have the shoes. Let us see it.
You know how I do, baby sis. It's gonna be the shoes, the shirt, and the hat. The pants I can swap out, but that's just how I do it.
So let's see, you have 169 likes. Thank you, fam. Thank you, Dave, for keeping track.
Yeah.
And Dave Busby says you're amazing. You taking back to school.
Okay, I appreciate that. But like I said, man, this is all about us. I want this community. Like I said, the thing that I listen to you guys, and that's what makes what I do a lot easier for me, because only thing I'm doing is just delivering back to you what you're asking for. I got so many questions about doing the 18-day compost, and I was like, okay, well, now that I'm starting to get into the live, then maybe that's something that I need to talk about first, because collecting your leaves and the cardboard was one of the things that I definitely wanted to bring issue to and let you guys know to check for. It's the recycled cardboard for the most part. They have what they call a virgin pulp cardboard. Not sure where you can find that at, but if you see anything that has a virgin pulp, that is the good stuff. That's what you want to use. And like I said, I have a 13-page paper shredder. I just zip that thing down into 4-inch strips, run that down in it. And I got trash cans of this stuff out there. This is all shredded up into little grade pieces. And the finer that is, the faster your compost is going to be complete, and the better it's going to be complete, because the larger particle size is going to take longer to break down. The smaller the particle sizes, and it's decomposition 101. Smaller particle size, the more surface area, the more that the microbes can get in and break that stuff down. And the earthworms, they love that cardboard. And once again, it cycles through that system. They poop it out, becomes worm castings. That's what you want in that compost. So let's give us another one over here, Tam.
Well, G Mama she says, I have love lies, bleeding seeds. I guess I'll be dropping them now. Absolutely. So I'm not sure what that means, but
that's the amaranth. Yeah, that love lies, seed. Yeah, that's what it is. Amaranth. Where is that at?
Let's see. It's toward the bottom.
Yeah, love lies amaranth. That is the correct one, G Mama.
Okay, let's see. I saw someone, they asked a question about containers for composting.
Again, your compost is going to do best in a 3x3, 36 inches wide, 36 inches tall. You can go larger than that, but if you want to do hot composting, that's generally what you want to have. 36 inches wide, 36 inches tall. And that is to have, because the core of that pile is what's going to heat up. And what you're going to do is basically turn the inside to the outside. And you're going to do that in the 18-day composting. You build your pile, sits for 4 days. It heats up. By that day 4, you should have anywhere from 130 to 160 degrees. That's Fahrenheit. On day 4, you turn it. Turn the inside of the core to the outside. You wait 2 days and you go back and you turn 2 days for the next 14 days. In 18 days, you have usable compost. Now, of course, the longer you allow that compost to sit, the better it's going to get, because as it starts to cool down, and I swear, boy, my brain just went blank, because the first stage of composting, then you go through the hygienization, you go through the thermophilic phase, and then it goes back to the G is coming to me. But yeah, 4 stages. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. You go through the first stage where it starts to heat up, and then you go through the thermophilic stage where it starts to really get at that high temperature, and then it breaks down where it goes through the hygienization, which cleans the compost up, and then it goes back through the, I'm going to think of this word, because I'm not going to let this word whoop me. we'll catch it on the next round. But 4 stages that compost pile goes through. Again, it starts to heat up. That's the first set of microbes. And then you have your thermophilic microorganisms. Those are the ones that take that temperature up where the first set of microbes can't live in it. So they'll die off. And then as the thermophilic microbes take over, they heat that pile up, goes through the hydrogenization phase, which cleans it up, takes out your weed seeds, your pathogens, all of that bad stuff. And then it starts to cool off again when you get around day 18. And then as it cools down again, that same bacteria that started the pile off comes back in, and then it starts to cool off. And then you go through a phase that's called the actinomycetes. That's a bacteria that comes in towards the end. And the actinomycetes is what gives you that finished smell of compost. That's what actually gives it that beautiful earthy smell. So you could take that thing, if your pile is having any kind of smell to it, that means that you're going anaerobic. So something is going wrong. And basically all you do is just break the pile up, add some more carbons into it, and then start to build it back up again. So we're not going to
Keith. Well, so did you want to take any more questions? Because we're like at 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I don't know if you want to wrap it up or take a few more questions, because I do see Dudamaff, Dudamaff. They're asking, do you make swamp water for fertilizer? Do you make or do you use swamp water fertilizer?
I do, but not as much as I used to. Over here in our community, we call this super juice. that's Miss Linda's coin. We call it super juice. I did a video where I called it garden gumbo.
Oh,
you
yeah.
You can call it whatever you want, but that's really what it is. Some people call it swamp water. Yes, I do use it. I have used it. I didn't use it last year because I was trying to, like I say, learn how to do the fish fertilizer. So I was using that more than anything. And what I like to do is, before I start talking about what I've done, I like to take it through the phases, show what it's done. So a lot of the videos that you'll see me doing this year are actually going to be footage from last year, because what I'm doing is what I experimented with last year. I'll start to bring the finished things in this year and take you through the phases of how I got to that. So it just makes more sense to me that way, as opposed to dragging it out, showing you what the beginning phase is, and then having you ask the questions, well, what's next? Okay, well, what's the middle phase? What's next? I like to do everything in one series. You get it all at one time. So I'm going to thank the moderators for coming out. And again, don't forget, our moderators, go over to TammySherrill.com, pick out you something. She got some real nice fashion jewelry over there. Pick you something out, and that's on Growing Out the Box. And my baby sis, Tam, right here. So we're just trying to do something to share back with you guys. Let's see what South Florida.
Yes, and they will be shipped out tomorrow. So I saw a couple of orders come in. So thank y'all. I'm excited to send it to you. And I'm putting the website address in the chat again. Be sure to use that promo code, and they will be shipped out tomorrow. So make sure y'all order.
Yes, and Trying Lives makes a good point. Finished compost can be kept for a while, years, if protected from the elements. And you're going to see when I build the compost pile, I'm going to have like a little awning over it, because I keep a tarp over mine. If anybody who's watched it in my videos, you see whenever I go to the back, you'll see me pull the tarp from over my compost. So getting some notes. Yeah, mesophilic. That's what it is. See, my wife came in to save me. Mesophilic bacteria. That's the first phase. So I kept saying the first phase, mesophilic bacteria. That's your first phase of hot composting. Again, like I say, I don't do cold composting because there's so many things that can go wrong. You're going to get weed seeds, a little more prominent, because even with hot composting, there's still the potential of weed seeds. There's still the potential of pathogens, but the hot composting greaters your chances of getting good, usable, safe. And the key word there is safe compost. and that what it is, the mesophilic bacteria, and that's a mesophilic phase that it goes through. It goes from the mesophilic bacteria, which keeps around the temperatures maybe up to 100. Once the mesophilic does their job and starts stimulating that heat, then the thermophilic bacteria comes in. They take it up to that 130 to 160. And as it goes for a while and starts to decline again, the heat, the mesophilic comes back in after the hygienization phase. After the hygienization phase, the thermophilics come, the mesophilics come back in and they start to cool that down. That's when your arthropods, your earthworms, and all that start to house in your pile. And that's when you know you got that black gold going. That's when it's ready to go back into the garden. And again, I say we can do this in 18 days. Grass clippings and leaves. That's simple. Let's keep it real simple. Grass clippings and leaves. Anything else you want to add? Chicken manure, cow manure. I don't have chickens. I don't have cows. So all of that's on you. But I'm speaking to the people who have the bare minimums. This is how you can do it and save yourself hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year on compost, because there's no reason why we should be buying some things when we're scrapping most of the material in our gardens anyway. So we're going to give our moderators some love, made by Tammy Sherrill. Let's see who else.
So Brenda's just entering the room, but thank you. Hi, Brenda. Thank you for joining.
We got, hey, Brenda Hogan. Appreciate you for coming in. We're getting ready to exit out of here, but I thank everybody for coming out. We got Nikki, the OCD is chicken. If you guys are not subscribed to any of our moderators, please go over and subscribe to them. South, I don't know why I keep wanting to say South Fulton.
Because that's a county in your area.
Yeah, that's a county right next to where I'm at. South Florida Sunshine, appreciate you. Let's see, where's Mike at in there? Where you at, Mike? Oh, there you go. Got Mike's Chaotic Gardening. This man does amazing with the indoor growing, the hydroponics. That's his thing. That's what he's good at. So if you're not subscribed to Mike's Chaotic Gardening, please do. Let's see. I think that's pretty much who we have in here, Tam.
And everybody has done such a great job, the moderators. So everyone, please be sure to follow Growing Out the Box on Instagram, of course, YouTube, and of course, if you're on TikTok, and Facebook, you can follow Growing Out the Box, and you can follow Keith Chapman.
Now, here's a good question now before we get out of here, because she adds a very good question. If you add cardboard to your compost pile, can it start a fire during the thermophilic phase? The answer is yes. Yes. So you want that in a real clean space. And the way I have my, I don't know if you guys have been watching long enough to where you'll see where I have my composting area. All of that area is all just dirt. I don't have any grass. I don't have anything close to the pile. But yes, 160 degrees, it can heat up. And if you have cardboard, like raw cardboard on it, yes, it can heat up and start a fire. That's how hot that pile gets, thermophilic composting. But it is the best thing that you want to do in your garden. And on that note, we're going to say, let me gather my thoughts now. Because I said the last time I was on, Grandpa used to say,
he said to plant a seed
is to believe in tomorrow, to keep growing out the box. And I'm going to use that every day. And I'm going to make sure that this thing flows smooth every day. To plant a seed is to believe in tomorrow. And that's such a true statement. So y'all keep growing out the box, and we'll see y'all on the next live. Y'all message me, let me know what it is you guys want to talk about. And if you want to go back into the composting thing again, have any more questions, I'll be more than happy to come up and talk to you about it again. So until the next time, I appreciate you, Tam. I appreciate all my moderators. I appreciate all you guys for coming out. Holler at you. Growing out the box.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, everyone.